of prevention, of accountability, of rehabilitation, of youth, so that they go the right direction, so that they go away from crime and away from gun violence. Obviously a critical issue that we face now. Pandemic has done us a lot of harm, honestly, and only one of the ways in which it has done us some harm is it's made it harder for youth aid panel workers, youth aid panel volunteers to sit next to juveniles, to sit next to victims who may have been harmed by those juveniles. We're all staring at each other in a little box on a screen, and that is not the same thing as being in the presence of a child and in the presence of a victim. Well, I'm happy to report that, as with so many other things in this city surrounding the pandemic, the time is coming when people can be in the same space and they can be in the same room, and that effective impact that has been there for so many years is coming back. Thank goodness. Anyway, let me start, first of all, by acknowledging some of the wonderful people who are here. We have with us First Assistant Robert Listenby, who, as many of you may recall, among so many other achievements in juvenile justice, was Barack Obama's Chief of Juvenile Justice during Barack Obama's second term. We have Faith Harris, Program Manager for the DAO Juvenile Diversion Program. We have Daisy Getz, who is the Youth Aid Panel Program Coordinator for the city. Reverend Myra Maxwell is here. She, of course, is the Executive Director of the DAO's Victim Support Services Division. With her is Melanie Nelson, who's the Director of the DAO's CARES Unit, which is the group within the office, grant-funded group that works very intensely with the families of homicide victims during the first 45 days. We have ADA Jeffrey Palmer, who is an attorney in our office with the DAO's Gun Violence Task Force. ADA Palmer has had a very successful prosecution under Section 6105, which means being a felon in possession of a firearm, and he is here to speak about that. This is not just anybody, the case he will speak about. This is not the case of just anybody in possession of a firearm. This is the kind of case that we should worry about. This is a case involving a man named Raheem Hutchinson, who is a known member of a group that is driving gun violence in the city of Philadelphia, and he will speak to the specifics around that successful prosecution. We have Michelle Neal, Victim Witness Coordinator for the DAO's Juvenile Unit. Brooklyn Johnson is here, and that is, by the way, BROOK-LYNN. Brooklyn Johnson, Victim Witness Coordinator at the DAO's Juvenile Unit. Gloria Gray is here. She is a Youth Aid Panel volunteer working with the 14th Police District Panel. Catherine Zaleski is also a Youth Aid Panel volunteer who works with the 2nd Police District Panel. We have Mr. Dorian Harris here, also a Youth Aid Panel volunteer working with the 35th District Youth Aid Panel. And we will be delighted, before we turn to questions, to hear from Pastor Buddy Osborne, senior pastor here at the Rock Ministries. When he's not in the ring, throwing punches, taking punches, not that I know anything about that, when he's not doing that, he is guiding youth in a really important and wonderful direction in an area of the city that needs everything he has to offer. So we're looking forward to hearing from him. Let me turn briefly and speak a little bit about gun violence. Last week in Philadelphia, there were 6 homicides, 18 non-fatal shootings, 79 cases open involving guns or gun violence. What we saw in terms of cash bail was its continuing failure. For illegal possession of guns, the median cash bail set was $150,000. If we exclude those cases that were homicide cases where people are usually held without bail, if we look at the ones where bail was set involving violent gun offenses such as shootings, robberies, gunpoint robberies, gunpoint carjackings, if we look at that bail, it was at $350,000. That is a little bit better than some of the time, but bear in mind, we have consistently for 2 years been asking for basically $1 less than $1 million. Overall, there were 105 gun-related incidents reported to the Philadelphia Police Department. There were 80 arrests made by the Philadelphia Police Department. Of those 80 arrests made by the Philadelphia Police Department, the DA's office originated 79 criminal cases. In terms of shootings, I want to point to a couple of noteworthy shootings in a moment. But let me just talk about where we are in relation to last year. We are at 95 homicides this year to date. That's as of March the 6th at midnight. Last year, 86 homicides. This is a 10% increase at the moment. As I mentioned earlier, 6 homicides this last week, 18 non-fatal shootings. And while that is awful, it is slightly less than the approximately 10.5 per week that we usually see. I'm speaking of homicides now. 105 gun or gun violence incidents. And as I mentioned before, nearly every case they brought us was sufficient, and so we were able to bring criminal charges. On Saturday, March the 5th, at about 10:41 p.m. on the 1200 block of North 58th Street, there was a shooting incident involving a double homicide. Victim number 1, an approximately 20-year-old black male, was shot 1 time in the chest. He was taken to Presbyterian Hospital by police, where he was pronounced a short time later. Victim number 2 was an approximately 18-year-old black male, shot multiple times throughout the body. He was taken to Presbyterian Hospital by medics, where he was pronounced a short time later. No arrest has been made at this time in this incident. The investigation is vigorous and it is ongoing. Anyone with information, please contact the Philadelphia Police Department's Homicide Unit at 215-686-TIPS. That's 215-686-TIPS, or the PPD's Shooting Investigation Group, which is at 215-686-8270. Second incident is also a homicide. This one occurred Sunday, March the 6th at about 8:58 a.m. on the 400 block of North 58th Street. A black female, approximately 30 years old, was shot once in the right chest. She was taken to Presbyterian Hospital by police, where she was pronounced a short time later. A firearm was recovered. This investigation remains ongoing. Anyone with information, please contact Homicide, PPD's Homicide Unit, at 215-686-TIPS, or the Shooting Investigation Group, run by the Police Department, at 215-686-8270. This is not just a story of the terrible crimes that we are dealing with all the time in the city of Philadelphia and in the nation. This is also a story of accountability. It is my pleasure to be able to introduce ADA Jeffrey Palmer, someone I interviewed, someone I know from the beginning in our office, who is now working and doing a great job with our gun violence task force. Mr. Palmer had a background in the military, including being a lawyer and a prosecutor, and also defending in the military, because that is what JAGs, Judge Advocate Generals, lawyers in the military, do before he came to us. And that's some pretty good experience, some pretty useful experience. And I'm happy to say that that good work, that hard work, that experience, that background left him very well qualified to prosecute Raheem Hutchinson. I will let him tell you the details. Mr. Palmer?
Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here with everyone today. So the case that the district attorney was referring to is the Commonwealth versus Raheem Hutchinson. On February 17th of this year, so just a few weeks ago, Mr. Hutchinson was convicted of a case where he was arrested near 60th and Pine here in West Philadelphia, carrying a firearm which he was prohibited from possessing based on a prior conviction, as well as a large quantity of several different narcotics, including methamphetamine and fentanyl. He was originally attempted to be stopped by the 18th District. He fled the scene. At that point, the 18th District and members of the Criminal Intelligence Unit from the Southwest Task Force pursued Mr. Hutchinson in the area of 60th and Pine. They were able to locate him. Upon seeing police, he yet again fled. Members of the 18th District and the Criminal Intelligence Unit gave chase. They were able to apprehend him and recover a firearm, which he discarded in the process of fleeing police. His His motor vehicle, his car, was held for a search warrant, which was obtained after being approved by a magistrate. The car was searched, and that large quantity of narcotics as well as narcotics paraphernalia were found inside the vehicle. And as a result, Mr. Hutchinson was convicted of violations of the Uniform Firearms Act as well as possession with intent to deliver illegal narcotics. And the reason that we're highlighting this case to you is first and foremost, Mr. Hutchinson is a known member of a group that goes by Southside Stizzy. Southside is a larger group. It has different smaller components. He was a member of a specific group that goes by Stizzy, which congregates near 56th and Market, is where they're known to be found. They're currently in a feud with several other groups in West and Southwest Philadelphia, including a group that goes by Northside and another group that goes by O to the 4th. That would be the number 0, number 2, DA, and 4. Mr. Hutchinson's prosecution is also an example of the model that we've employed in the Gun Violence Task Force, where we handle a range of different crimes and violations that are committed by known drivers of crime in different police districts, known group members, where we will handle their violations of the Uniform Firearms Act, like in this case, as well as their shootings. And the model and the way that we work is we receive immediate notification from the police district leadership of the arrest, which I did in this case. I then immediately adopted the case, which includes handling the setting of bail, providing of information to the bail magistrate, a high bail request, handling the preliminary hearing, as well as assisting, in this case, the assigned detective at Southwest Detective Division, Detective Conway, with obtaining any search warrants and conducting any searches to make sure that all searches are lawfully done and that the Commonwealth will be successful in any motions to suppress. After the preliminary hearing, we will handle all of those motions to suppress in the Gun Violence Task Force, the ultimate prosecution, as well as then the sentencing to make sure that the appropriate result is obtained in these cases with these drivers of crime. So this is a good example where in this case, Mr. Hutchinson received high bail. He remained in custody from the time that he was arrested until he was convicted. 3 motions to suppress were brought by Mr. Hutchinson's counsel in this case. The Commonwealth was successful on all 3. I prosecuted Mr. Hutchinson where he was convicted, and he will now be sentenced in late April, April 28th, for the crimes that he has committed. So this is a great example of where we are identifying the drivers of crime in these neighborhoods. We're taking these cases seriously, and we are being successful in the ultimate prosecution and sentencing of these drivers of crime, and appropriate results for the impact that they have on these neighborhoods is being obtained by the District Attorney's Office as well as the members of the Gun Violence Task Force. And obviously thanks to our collaboration with the Philadelphia Police Department, in this case specifically the 18th District, the Southwest Task Force, as well as Southwest Detective Division, and the early notification and the collaborative relationship that we have with them. Thank you. I'll turn it back over to our next speaker.
Thank you, Jeff. Great work. As for Southside Stizzy, one of you is going to jail. Next time you have a meeting, it might be in jail if you keep it up. If your idea of how to behave involves guns, it involves drugs, it involves shootings, look for your next meeting to be in a jail cell. It is now my pleasure to be able to turn to our main topic today, which is youth aid panels and the incredibly important work that they do. So what is a youth aid panel? I think of it as being sort of a circle of people who are gathered around a particular juvenile and also a particular victim to the extent that victim wants to be involved. And they are working on something. And what they are working on is not having another victimization connected to this juvenile. What they're working on is having this juvenile do the right thing, attend school, work, develop a trade, pay back the person the juvenile may have harmed. To talk about the nuts and bolts, this panel usually looks like a police officer who is involved, sometimes involved in the arrest. It looks like a representative from the DA's office. Most of them are victim witness coordinators in our office, but not all. It looks very importantly like a youth aid panel volunteer from the community. These are people giving of themselves, giving their time, giving their effort, sometimes for years, and for no personal gain, just to help, just to make it better. It's amazing work. Also in that circle is the juvenile with a parent. They're not thrown in there alone. They're there with a parent. And victims are invited. Some of them participate, some of them may not, for obvious reasons having to do with their own choices. I'm going to let some of these wonderful folks talk to you, but before I do it, let me say this. We need more volunteers. This is the moment as society is opening up, and in particular, we need more volunteers who speak Spanish, que hablan español. We need more volunteers who speak Arabic, more volunteers who speak Creole. We need volunteers who can sit in that circle with a linguistic and a cultural understanding that will help to get the work done. So I look forward in a minute to talking to Telemundo, because we need some of those volunteers. We are, after all, in Kensington, and there are a number of people who speak Spanish who live in this community. We need those volunteers, and we need them to help fill out our panels and to do this important work. So you will now hear from actually 4 sets of people. The first set will be led by Faith Harris, who is the director of the Youth Aid panel. She will be accompanied by Robert Listenby, our first assistant, who was Obama's guy when it came to juvenile justice, and also by Daisy Getz, whose introduction I gave earlier, but who is the YAP program coordinator for the city. After them will come another set, and that will be Michelle Neal, witness coordinator in the juvenile unit for the DA's office. She is the DA's office rep for the Youth Aid panel, and she will be coming up with Brooklyn Johnson. Did I get that right? Yeah. I think I did. Okay, good. And then we will hear from 3 community volunteers who do this amazing work. Gloria Gray, who does it with the 14th, Catherine Zaleski, who does it with the 2nd, and also Mr. Dorian Harris. You'll be hearing from all of them together to the extent they wish to talk to you about what brings them here and how they value this and what they get back from all of this wonderful work. And finally, we're going to hear from one man who's a team all by himself, Pastor Buddy Osborne, who's senior pastor here at Rock Ministries. After that time, we will take questions from the media. I will not be getting up in between these groups, so please come one after another if you would, and we will start out with Faith Harris and her companions.
Good morning to all of you. My name is Faith Harris, and I'm the proud program manager and director for Youth Aid panels. As the DA mentioned, Youth Aid panels have been a staple program that we offered young people for over 30 plus years. In my opinion, it's a gem because it allows us to partner with the community so that we can impart wisdom, understanding, forgiveness, love, and to connect young people and parents to resources, programs, and services so we can redirect them and help them to have a better future. During the pandemic, we were doing panels virtually, which was not by design, but unfortunately, it was all that we could do to still be able to offer young people the opportunity. And I was so excited and delighted that a lot of our volunteers in the city still decided to step up and to be a part. And so during that time period of a year and a half, we were able to successfully divert 75 young people and to help them go through the program. And now we're moving back to being face-to-face. And we have 7 panels in the city. Those panels are at the 2nd Police District, the 14th Police District, the 17th Police District, the 18th Police District, the 35th Police District, and the 22nd Police District. All important areas. They are target areas in our city, and the volunteers who are in each panel live in those neighborhoods, and they give back in those neighborhoods. As the DA mentioned, we are looking for more volunteers, and we would like you to be able to apply, to be a part, to go through training, and to learn this restorative practice and to learn this trauma-informed practice that we are offering young people instead of traditional court. If you would like to apply, you can send your information to justice@phila.gov. Again, that's justice@phila.gov. And we will speak with you, we will get to know you, and we will target the actual location that you'll be serving in. And I want to thank the DA for the opportunity to oversee this amazing program and allow me to work with some amazing individuals to help run this program and to, again, offer young people a non-traditional, opportunity that involves more practice of love and care, more time for them to work with their parents on how to restore the harm that they cause, and we can provide interventions to help them not go down the wrong path. So thank you all for your time.
Hi, I'm Daisy. I oversee the panels as well. I'm a program coordinator here at the DA's office. And I, as well, just feel so fortunate to be able to work with the panelists that are standing behind me, the people who work from our office, to give to the program. I think the most important thing about the Youth Aid Panel program that we offer is that obviously youth are incredibly diverse in what they're interested in and what might be their path forward and what might redirect them. And so the most important part about our program is that we listen to the youth, we hear them, we get to know them, and instead of having kind of a cookie cutter response, we are able to have our programs be flexible and connect them to the programs that will do best by them. So I feel so lucky, and thank you all, and yes, thank you to the DA for giving us this opportunity to speak to you today.
Good morning. My name is Bob Listenby, and I have the good fortune of working for DA Krasner as one of his two first assistants. I've also had the opportunity to work for him on juvenile justice programming. When I joined the office, the DA said, "Bob, you can make a difference in the lives of a lot of children here in the city and county of Philadelphia." I said, "I welcome that opportunity, and I will do my best." I have to tell you, the DA has prioritized working with young people. We've been able to take the youth aid panels and expand that program, but in addition, we currently have 23 separate programs in our juvenile justice menu that allow us to focus on rehabilitation, on jobs, on education, on recreation, on a variety of different things that children are interested in doing. And most of all, these programs are based in the communities across Philadelphia. This is critical. So I'm very excited to be here. I want to thank the Department of Human Services for giving us the funding to do this. They've continued to fund us and expanded our funding significantly so that we can impact the lives of children. You're going to meet some pretty special people in just a moment. These are people who devote their free time to come and work with our kids. The best way that we're going to be able to bring about change, including in the violence in the city and county of Philadelphia, is to have people who are willing to spend time with children. You can spend one day with a child, and that one day can completely change the direction of a child's life. You know, when I was young, I had challenges the way many other people do. I remember one encounter, just one, that changed my life. That was an encounter when I had run away from home, and my Uncle Raymond found me on the path as I was leaving the city. He pulled me to the side and said, "Bob, you need to go back home." And he sat down with me for about 5 or 10 minutes, and I went back home. That one encounter changed the direction of my life. I know that every day we have volunteers who are not only working with our young people, but some of them are working with our young people not for 1 year, not for 2, not for 3, but for 4 or 5 years, because those young people become connected to an adult that is committed to their lives and sees more in them than they see in themselves. So this is exciting to me. This is a passion that I have. This is something I love to do. But even more importantly, this is something that the people you're going to meet love to do and are committed to doing to change the lives of our children here in the city and county of Philadelphia. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Michelle Neal, and I am a victim witness coordinator in juvenile unit of the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office for the last 19 years, and I have served as secretary for the 24th Police District Youth Aid Panel for the last 11 years. So, If I do this, I must love what I'm doing, and I love giving back, so that's one of the reasons why I do this. We meet every second and fourth Thursday of the month from 7 to 9 p.m. The Youth Aid Panel is an alternative diversion program for first-time offenders to face a panel of volunteers from the community instead of a judge, and at the same time acknowledge that there's consequences for their behavior. As a panelist, we gain insight into the offense and develop appropriate resolutions. These resolutions focus on community responsibilities while facilitating positive outcomes. Examples of what may be asked of the youth includes, but not limited to, research on the crime committed, a letter of an apology to the victim, community service, journaling of daily activities, weekly calls to panelists like myself, and so on. The program is successful because it uses volunteers from your own communities, which offer greater impact. These panelists are directly invested in the youth and their communities, and thus holding the youth accountable. Youth Aid Panel empowers the community to participate in the process of problem solving by using people within the specific neighborhood. The program affords juveniles the opportunity to keep their records clean. Everyone deserves a second chance to have a clean record. In the end, the ultimate goal of the Youth Aid Panel is to prevent youth from becoming more deeply involved in delinquent acts and poor decision-making. In addition, it also makes you responsible for their actions through specific resolutions. The success of the program is when the kids call to say to me, "Thank you, I am graduating, this is what you have done for me." Thank you for your time for listening.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brooklyn Johnson, and I'm currently employed at the DA's office as a victim witness coordinator. I am assigned to the 18th District with the Youth Aid Panel, and I have been volunteering my time for roughly 4 years. It is extremely liberating to help the youth get back on track and help deter them from committing further crimes. What I enjoy most about it is building a strong connection with the youth I am able to mentor, and also just keeping in contact with them throughout their time, throughout their life, and being the person they needed at times when they did not have anyone. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dorian Harris. I am with the 35th Police District as a panel. So it was so funny that 5 years ago, I'm at this community event, and the DA office had a table out there, and I'm looking at the resource, and they said, I'm reading about this youth aid panel. And I was like, wow, you know what, this it looked very, very interesting. I said, you know what, let me get myself involved. That was 5 years ago. And as a single dad raising 6 children, I was like, why am I going to be involved with somebody else's, children? But I found out, during the first panel that I had at the 35th, and the youth, we talking, I said, you know what, I like this young man, let me be his mentor. And just knowing that the DA office have implemented restorative practices as opposed to punitive practices in the youth, in the lives of our youth. And I was like, you know what, I really, really like this, and I want to be a part of it. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to be here, but not only that, but to just share my time with a youth. We had a little briefing before we came out here, and like you said, as volunteers, we don't get paid nothing, right? But there is no monetary value that can compensate what we do for these youth. We saved their life, we redirected them. So when it comes from here, when it comes from the heart, you have a passion for it, it's not about money. It's about how do we redirect, how do we save another young youth coming through the system. So that's my compensation for it. That I see, you know what, these 5 years that I've been on this panel, I have some great youth, they have some challenges. I don't have mothers call me up and, the youth, they have a certain time to report and call in to check in. I say call me anytime. I don't care if it's 11, 12, or 1 o'clock at night. If you feel anxiety, you feel overwhelmed, or you just need somebody to talk to, call me. So I've been getting on calls at 11 and 1 o'clock at night, but it was a good call because I redirected a youth who was at that point in the moment not knowing where they was going to go at. So, you know, as the DA says, we're looking for more volunteers because this is just not a Northwest, it's not a Southwest, it's not a West, it's not an Army, it's not a Northeast. This is a Philadelphia initiative. So we all come together as a panel, to make sure that we can be supportive to someone, that we can actually change lives. I'm here to say this because I've seen it. I've been a part of that process. I've seen a couple young men that I have off to college now. One of them in their third year. They're in their third year now, and at Georgia State. And the mother calls me up every now and then, Mr. Doyne, I just got to thank you. I got to thank you because you really saved my son. I said, no, I didn't save him. We saved him. As a collaborative, we saved him. So there's not only that this program is great, it's excellent, and as they all said, we're looking for volunteers. And you may see me as one of those volunteer recruiters out here to recruit more volunteers. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Gloria Gray, and I am a YAP volunteer for the 14th District. I've been doing it for, I think, close to 12 years, and it really is an opportunity to be used and to give back and to do something to help the youth of Philadelphia. It is an awesome program, and we do look forward to more volunteers, but just to be able to have a one-on-one relationship or contact with another kid who is sitting at our panel, our informal, I guess, court you might call it, and they are scared to death sometimes because they're wondering what in the world is going to happen next. But the YAP program is an excellent opportunity for any adult who has a true desire and passion and cares about love and restoration for just humankind, especially the youth, because these kids are young, they've made some poor choices and decisions, but they feel they're scared when they come to the panel, always accompanied by another adult, usually a parent or guardian, and to sit there with them and ask them questions about, okay, well, why did you, what was on your mind? Oftentimes it is peer pressure, but at the same time, they're receiving an opportunity to start fresh. Everybody needs a fresh start. Everybody needs it. Everybody here today, it's a new day. Whatever happened yesterday, you can always move forward today with a fresh start. So we try to help the kids feel that here's a new opportunity through your contract, that you can do some things that are going to help you move forward, that are going to help you think about making better decisions, as we all need to do in our own journey. But the kids are young, they're immature, but they see that this is an opportunity to move forward. So I'm grateful for the program. I thank the DA's office for this opportunity to come and speak. And hopefully, with like minds and like hearts, someone will reach out to the DA's office and volunteer to be, and ask to be a volunteer. And just like the gentleman just said before me, truthfully, yes, there is no reward. There's no reward for doing something from the heart. If you're doing it from the heart and you care about kids, this is one of the best things you can do, is to be a volunteer for the DA's office for the kids of Philadelphia, and I thank you.
Hello, my name is Catherine Zaleski, and I have been a youth aid panel volunteer for about 5 years now, and I actually came across this program because I myself had to, I had a crime committed, and I was a victim of that crime, and the youth that went through the youth that was in trouble went through this program, and I afterwards was asked if I would be interested in helping out and volunteering, and I find it to be an absolutely amazing program for our youth. we really do need to direct these children into more positive and useful opportunities, and understand that we all make poor choices, and just trying to get them back onto the right path. And that's what our panel does. And I really hope that other people will think about maybe spreading the word and perhaps volunteering themselves. It really is our children. We have to break this cycle of negativity, and try to get these kids doing some positive, useful, enhancing things for themselves. So thank you very much, and thank you to the DA's office.
So, very quickly, around 1993, I'm sitting on the prison block, juvenile prison block, and there was 28 kids there between the ages of 13 and 17. 70% of them were in there for homicide. Many of them were still in jail. And the first thing that came to my mind, I said, well, what can I possibly do to see these kids not end up on the prison block? And it was like a light bulb went off, and the Lord sent me into Kensington, a place where I was born and raised, to start Rock Ministries. And what I've come to find out was that the thousands of kids that come through these doors, they have one thing in common. You know, they have a heart. And like the folks have been talking, you know, they need to be listened to. They need to be loved on, because 9 out of 10 kids in the inner city, and most neighborhoods have come from a fatherless home, so they don't have the man in their house to raise them, to discipline them, you know. And so what started was, you know, just the background in my boxing career, you know, as a boxer, traveling the world as a kid, coming from Kensington. And so what we did, we started it, we just used boxing as a means to reach kids with the gospel of Christ. And we have a 20-minute Bible study each week for every kid that comes in here. One of the things I just want to say, there's a verse that's extremely important for my life. It's like the mission statement. It says, train up a child in the way they should go, and when they grow old, they won't depart from it. You see, a kid can have a gun. You take the gun from the kid, he's going to pick up a bat. You take a bat from a kid, he's going to pick up a knife. You take all weapons from him, he's going to beat you. Take his hands, his feet, he'll butt you with his head. The heart has to change. And the only way that can change is by people loving on them and giving them the truth. Scripture says when you know the truth, it sets you free, and when you're free indeed. So I welcome everybody to Ground Zero, the epicenter of violence in Kensington, and grateful for the district attorney and his desire to really facilitate to help these kids to reach a better life. So thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you, Pastor, and thank you to all the speakers for all the incredible work that you do all the time. Before we do these conferences, I think one of the speakers mentioned, we usually all go congregate in another room and go through the sequence. And we also talk about what are some of the big messages, what are some of their thoughts. Before all the cameras come on and everybody gets nervous, what are your thoughts about this? And often I'll hear a phrase or I'll hear words that, you know, either stick or they don't, but I write them down. And I think some of that word choice, some of the words they pick, some of the things that they say are instructional in why this is so important to them and why it's so important to us. So let me tell you what's written here. Notes I took when they were talking. One person said, the kids go from fear over having been arrested, fear of possibly having to face someone they have harmed, fear of whatever is happening out there. They go from there to a place of being heard. They go from there to feeling that people actually care. They go from there to a sense of respect when they felt none before. Another said it's about giving back, but when you give back, you see the difference. You see the success. You see a relationship that starts to build between these children and these adults. Some of these relationships, I was told, go on for years, 5 years later, 6 years later. These kids are checking in. They're checking in when they're going to college. Isn't that what you said, Mr. Harris? You have 2 or 3 going to college? They're checking in when they're going to college. It's exciting, one of them said, it's exciting to see when they take your advice and they actually act on it. It's a passion. Money's not the point. I think you probably get it. The people who do this amazing work, this incredible work, they are giving, but they're also getting back. They are getting back, whether it's something from their personal life story, something they've been through, or it is simply the satisfaction of being able to affect the life of a young person, turn that young person in the right way, prevent the next victimization. It's a beautiful thing. All right. I can only imagine there may be a couple questions. So if there are any questions for any people on this distinguished and important panel here, please let me know. Any questions for me? Let me say this before I do that, though. We need volunteers. This is incredibly important work, never more important than right now, as we all hope that we are coming out of a pandemic, or at least we're getting to a point where that pandemic's effect is reduced. The Youth Aid Panel has been around for decades, and it needs your help. We need your skills. We need your passion. We need your time. We need you to come and join all of us to do this incredibly important work. The way to apply is to send an email to justice, Justice, at phila.gov.gov. That is for everyone. Now, if we are so lucky as to have volunteers who speak a little bit of Spanish, Arabic, Creole, any other language, it's all very helpful. But the 3 main areas of need are for volunteers who speak some Spanish, some Arabic, or some Creole. Para esos que hablan español, necesitamos su ayuda. Inmediatamente, los jóvenes necesitan su ayuda. Y por eso, si pueden enviarnos un email a justice@phila.gov, justicia, pero escribimos en inglés, es decir, JUSTICE, at phila.gov, PHILA. KOV. Okay, I'm trying. Necesitamos su ayuda y muchas gracias por eso. Are there any questions for anyone here?
Have you seen the video of the 12-year-old shot last week in the back by the police officer? What does it depict?
The situation with the 12-year-old is under very close and careful investigation. I expect there to be some developments with reference to that situation this week. I have been in close communication with our police commissioner. I have seen some video, and it would be very inappropriate in the middle of an investigation when there is the potential for interviews of witnesses for me to speak at length about evidence in this case. There will come a time, Mr. Cole, there will come a time when we can speak fully about it, maybe even show some things from it, but today is not that time.
But is there sources indicate that he's on his knees and shot in the back?
Do you expect charges in this case? Do you expect to bring charges against one or more police officers?
What I expect, and I say this respectfully, I know that you would all like me to be able to say more, but let me say as much as I can. What I expect is that this very concerning situation will be investigated thoroughly, that no stone will be left unturned, and once all of the information is available, once we know all of the facts as best we possibly can, we will look at the law and determine what is the best thing to do in that regard. As you know, we have had other situations involving police shootings. In fact, we've had many, many, many of them. A small number have resulted in charges at this time. We intend to be as fair as we possibly can to everyone involved in this incident, and I can tell you I have been in close communication fairly continuously with the police commissioner about this. It is obviously of great interest and concern to her as well.
Can you just talk about the process? Just generally, can you just talk about the process and how this process may be any different just when it comes to police involved shootings and your office deciding whether or not there should be charges? How does that normally go, and then how is it maybe different this time?
Well, I can tell you that we review a lot of shootings. Part of what we are supposed to do is actually send a representative to the scene of an officer-involved shooting. It's something we do all the time at all hours of the day. Sometimes the situation is very clear one way, sometimes it is not. And it requires either waiting for forensic evidence or efforts to obtain additional video, interviews with witnesses. As you know, with officer-involved shootings, not every witness is always available immediately, due in part to some of the internal processes with police departments that exist across the country. So sometimes it can take time to accumulate that. In certain situations where a shooting is clearly fully justified from the very beginning, the process can be shorter. The evidence can be crystal clear. In other situations where more of a look is required, it takes longer. As a matter of law, we are not to comment on whether or not a grand jury is considering a case, so we follow the law. We do not comment upon that. That is not a hint that it's sitting. That is not a hint that it's not sitting. What I'm telling you is even if I wanted to answer a question like that, it's against the law, and I am not going to break the law. That's not something I'm going to do. But I think based upon a couple of prior situations in which this office has ended up charging on-duty police officers with crimes in relation to a shooting of a person, for example, the case involving Officer Pownall or the case involving Officer Ruck, I think you are aware that it was a while before those charges came down. And I think that you are aware in those particular instances that there was a grand jury that was involved. So, obviously I cannot tell you exactly what's going on for fear of jeopardizing an investigation or doing something that is improper, unwise, illegal. I'm not going to do that. But I can tell you we take this obligation in all cases, including this case, extremely seriously, and we intend to be as strictly fair to everyone as we possibly can be.
When a young man dropped the gun, which is Krasner.
I'm sorry?
What do you make of the 12-year-old being shot in the back?
What I can tell you is that we, in any homicide case, whether it involves police or not, in any shooting case, it's always very important to look at the forensics. This is part of my steady drumbeat now for 3 years, how important it is really to be able to go after details. One of those details is and always has been, where does the bullet enter the body? Where does it travel after it enters the body? How close was the gun at the time the bullet was fired? All of these are important factors to consider, but they must be considered in light of all of the other evidence. And that, once again, sometimes you don't have it all right away. Sometimes there's forensic testing that takes a little bit to come back. Sometimes there's a search going on, a subpoena that's out there, and the documents or the video or whatever it may be is not back. We live in an era of cell phones. We live in an era of Ring cameras, not to mention other forms of governmental or private industry surveillance that are out there. And so I think we all hope that any decision made on a case like this will be completely fair and based on gathering all the evidence before a judgment is made.
You just said that you expect action this week, and then also said that it can take some time, but you expect action this week. So you have most of what you need to make a call here?
I can tell you this, and I will tell you as much as I can. I expect there to be some activity occurring this week. That much I can tell you. And when I say that, understand there are multiple things in process. We have our own process at the DA's office, and while it is certainly collaborative with the police department's process, they have different decisions to make than we have to make. What I'm saying, and I'm saying it generically on purpose, is I expect there to be some developments this week.
The development for you is you charge people, though, right? When you do things, you charge them.
DA Krasner, can you talk about where does your office stand on the Pennsylvania state law that allows police to use deadly force if the suspect has committed a felony, attempted a felony, or is attempting to escape, flee, and has a deadly weapon? Where does your office stand on that, and is that law applicable in this case?
Well, as I imagine a lot of you have covered earlier, in the Pownall case, after we brought charges against Officer Pownall in relation to that killing of a person who was unarmed at the time he was shot twice and in the back. In that particular case, we did something that's a little bit unusual. Well, actually, a couple things that are unusual. First of all, we charged it, which is seldom done, by prosecutors in the United States, and even more seldom done in the city of Philadelphia if you look back a few decades. But more importantly, in terms of your question, we filed an appeal before trial, and we filed our appeal with higher courts contending that the jury instructions that a jury would have to consider are unfair, that they are unconstitutional, that they have made for a playing field that is uneven and favors a police defendant in ways that they should not. That appeal is ongoing at this time. So we were saying with that appeal that we don't think the law and the jury instructions have it right, that we think it unjustly, unfairly favors officers who harm others in the line of duty, We think it unfairly helps them, and that the law should be even-handed. And we look forward to getting a decision from the higher courts on that before we go to trial in the Pownall case. That a decision in that regard would affect essentially any case in which there is, or could potentially affect any case in which charges are brought against a police officer in relation to a fatal shooting.
Does the video support what the police said happened?
I'm not in a position to comment on that right now. It could be harmful to the integrity of an investigation, and the last thing that I'm going to do is to harm an investigation that is underway. Are there? I'm not going to comment at this time. All of this information will come out. All the facts will come out at the proper time, but I'm not going to risk the possibility of ruining the integrity of an investigation where there's more information to gather and there are more witnesses to interview. Are there any questions that are about the subject matter of this press conference?
Do you mind reflecting on, we're talking about this case of this 12-year-old boy, by accounts from neighbors, he had a difficult upbringing. If you can, talk about this case as it relates to the work that you're doing with the YAP.
Well, I certainly can. I think that none of us want to see violence on the street. None of us want to see violence on the street that involves juveniles. None of us want to see shootings happening that may involve juveniles or adults, and this is true whether or not police are involved. There is no way that what people in this room are doing is going to make things worse. It is only going to make things better. And, I really have to applaud people who have done so much, either professionally or as volunteers. I really have to applaud what they're doing. It's incredibly important work. It's God's work. You pick your faith. It's God's work any way you look at it. And I just want to thank everyone here who has been involved in that process. Is there any other question on this topic?
When it comes to volunteers that you guys need, how many, I don't know if somebody wants to speak to this, like how many hours does that, I want to say, take for somebody to be a volunteer?
I'm going to ask Faith Harris to come
And then
forward.
also, what maybe ages are you looking at?
We're looking for adults who are between the age of 25 to 45, and the amount of hours a month could be anywhere from 5 to 10. It depends on the time that you have to actually sit on the panel, the time you're speaking to a young person after the panel is over, as well as just being engaged in what they're doing and what's happening with them.
And then, do you have any, I don't know if I should say research or maybe studies about how this has been effective? Because I know it's been around since the 80s.
Yes, research has been done on youth aid panels. Actually, Drexel University has been very instrumental in tracking the success of the program, looking at how many cases that we are accepting, the recidivism of those cases, as well as the length of stay in which a young person is under contract, which could last anywhere from 3 months to 6 months. It depends on the after-school activities that they're involved in, the sports activities, as well as the community service. And so Drexel University has been helping us directly to track and to see if it's being successful, as well as our own internal data staff.
And then can you just restate your name and then spell it if you don't mind?
Faith Harris, Faith, last name Harris, Harris.
Can I ask one follow-up? What types of crimes are considered? And you said you had 75 successful diversions. How many were candidates under this program?
There were more, of course, than 75. I want to say close to about 100 because we're counting young people who were arrested during the pandemic for that particular time. And those young people, of course, their cases are screened. We investigate, we talk to victims, talk to witnesses, and we're looking at the nature of the crime. And so young people who are arrested could be arrested for aggravated assault, simple assault, could be theft, could be vandalism, could be criminal mischief, and the list goes on. But we look at particularly how the youth was involved, what was the actual victimization, and how can we help to repair the harm.
All right, thank you.
Back to the DA, back to the 12-year-old, just for a minute. Does what you've seen raise questions in your mind about police training?
Mr. Cole, I appreciate your persistence, and I mean that sincerely. I'm not trying to be snarky, but that is all that we have for today. And I want to make sure we don't completely lose focus on this important issue and how much good we can do by getting volunteers to assist with the YAP program. That is, in fact, how we prevent some pretty terrible things from happening on the street. I would love to see a day when we don't have questions about 12-year-olds who allegedly have guns, because 12-year-olds don't have guns. I would love to see that. And what's happening here is, I hope, a step in that direction. Thank you very much.